Namaste and a big hello to all of you, the people who are listening me today, right now, or maybe later. I want to start my talk with a big thank you to Reputation Today team, SPECTRA team, who have given me this opportunity to speak in front of all of you. The topic which I have chosen today is probably the closest to my heart, and I truly believe that that's the only thing which has helped me to come so far, and the topic is power of connections. If we all close our eyes and think about connections, you will realize everything is working on one word called connections. It has a deep meaning. It's your connection which is driving you from one place to another. It's your relationships which are driving you to do better every day. So I think it's truly the driver of the world. Connection is the driver of the world. You know, I just thought it's a platform where I can share a very strong experience, probably which happened with me just a month ago. So we from Kaizzen have, we have posted few videos, new videos which we've created as a company, and posted on various social media platforms. One of the known acquaintance, probably some 10-year-old or 12-year-old acquaintance, probably watched that video and buzzed me on LinkedIn. We connected back, we met again, and they were my ex-clients and they are my current clients now. So the idea of connections is essentially that, whatever connections you make, whenever, whatever time in the life, if they are strong and built on certain parameters, and of course I will talk about those parameters as per me, and they will always remain alive. There is no expiry date for connections. So that's something which is very, very important to understand. If your connections are strong and built on trust, transparency, empathy, agility, and professionalism, they will never die. How does these connections are built? Are they built overnight? Are they built like this? Or you take months, years together to build these relationships? Sometimes these connections, these relationships are built in one activity, and that becomes a defining moment of your character, your connection with other person. So understand that these connections are always built, and while I'm talking, you must be relating this with what I'm trying to say. Sometimes the connections are built with continuous good work over and over the years, and that brings your credibility with that person, and that probably that person will never forget that. Sometimes a person who needs you in certain circumstances and you stand by that, he would never forget you, and those connections will never die. Again, everybody's life would have various such examples, and these connections also you would see, generally when we really look back, we say connections and networking is about what we get. I personally feel connections and networking is not about what you get, it's about what you give, and that's what will build a strong connection. Connections are always a two-way street. It's not a one-way street. But in two-way street, the initiative has to be done by you. It's you who have to start the connection. It's you who have to move forward without expecting back. There will be a time when it comes back, and probably it comes back in much larger form. But I have learned one thing, that when you create a connection, it's always where you start with giving. Networking is about giving, not taking back. and when you need it, it would come back to you. So if you really look at, I've spoken about the connection, the life of a connection, it never expires. Spoken about the 5 core elements of any connection, and most important thing about connection is that you need to start it, you need to give. It's not about taking back. Something which one should never ever bring in between the connection or connections is ego. Ego is the only one word or one element which I feel should always be kept away in your connections or in your relationship. If you have to kill your connection, please bring your ego. And while I'm saying that, I also understand that there is a very thin line between ego and self-respect. So you need to manage that balance. I'm sure, since it's a two-way street, if you are able to manage the ego and the self-respect, you will have a very, very strong connection. We are the only people working in an industry where the name itself is connection. We are the only industry which has a relationship as part of the industry's name. It's public relations, right? No other industry. It's not an entertainment relation, it's not a healthcare relation, it's not an automobile relation, it's nothing. It's never a relation anywhere else but a public relations. So for us, our bread and butter is connections. Our way of life is connections. And therefore, I just want to sort of come to a point that who do you make these connections with? Are you making these connections with organizations or people? Have you ever heard a person saying that I have a good connection with Times of India? No, they would always say that I have a good connections in Times of India. Similarly, you would never say I have a great connection with XYZ client. You would always say that I have great connection in XYZ company. So the idea is these connections are built with the people, not with the client. And the minute we understand the person where we are connecting with, who are our key stakeholder, and work around them to create those strong connections, again, those 5 parameters, you will have a term called clients for life. The person can move from one place to other, but he would remember you always. Why do we always look at a client agency relationship? I'm an agency person, so probably that's where it's coming more strongly. But even in everyday, day to day, you could be working for a company, right? And just think about it, that your boss is a client and you're an agency, right? And that's how you build those connections. So everything is around, around a person. What is his way of doing things? What is it what he is looking for or she is looking for? And that's how you change yourself to build your strong connections. And I think that's the winning formula in today's world. Now let's look at a very different aspect of connections. We all are living in a virtual world. Thanks to the pandemic, this virtual has become more virtual for all of us. There are no offices, you're dealing with people through various video conferencing apps, various platforms, you're not meeting people personally. So, you all would have probably hundreds and thousands of connections on a virtual space, on a social media platform, whether it's Facebook, Insta, LinkedIn, Twitter, wherever. But are these connections real? You can start your connections from the social media platform, from these virtual platforms. But the real connections are when you start working on them. You start building on them, and that too in real life. and that's where you strengthen your. So I would say, virtual connections are good to have, but real connections are diamond, and that's where you would realize that the value comes from. So in the end, I would probably sum up what I felt is important as a learning. One, the strong connections are built on 5 pillars, which is trust, transparency, empathy, agility, and professionalism. Second, relationships and connections do not have expiry. You would not realize the connections built over the years will come back in what shape, when, where, and how. So never get disheartened. Keep on doing the good work. Third, when you create connections with people, not with the organizations. Keep always that in mind. That would help you to create strong connections, which will live forever. Fourth, connections are two-way streets. In this two-way street, you have to take the initiative. And always think that networking, connections, relationships are not to gain benefits. Rather, these relationships or networking or connections are there to where you can go and help people. And that's how things would come back to you. And finally, what I would want to say, the real connections are diamonds. Therefore, guys, please start thinking about it. Start building good relationships. That's what we are all about. And that's how we can live longer in this industry. Thank you.